Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart Healing Conversations. I'm Dawn, and I'm joined by Jana today. Here, we have honest, heart centered conversations about life transitions, loss, grief, healing, and finding our way back to joy. If your heart is hurting, if you're caring more than anyone realizes, or if you're simply looking for a place where you don't have to pretend you're okay, we're glad you're here. You don't have to have it all figured out, just come as you are. Our hope is that these conversations help you feel a little less alone and remind you that healing is possible and that joy can find its way back into your life. We're so excited to have you all here today. We've actually been doing our podcast on YouTube. We did season one there, and we decided to try and push it out to a few other platforms. So we kind of want to introduce ourselves today. I'm Dawn Michele Jackson. I have been a nurse for over 30 years. I'm also a grief recovery method specialist. And this is Jana Lynn Wellmeyer. She's also a grief recovery method specialist. And we help people heal their hearts after any type of loss, transition, event that causes emotional pain, because most of us carry around things from our past that affect our lives as we try and navigate our way forward. One of the things we want to talk about today is how grief tends to be that elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. I know that before I became a grief recovery method specialist, I thought grief was only related to someone dying. And so I didn't think that I had a lot of grief in my life until I stepped into this training, and it became very clear to me within the first couple hours that I'd been carrying grief way back from my childhood, growing up with a couple of alcoholic fathers, um, being part of an abusive relationship in my teenage years, and then suffering with a divorce at the age of 30. And I had never thought that that was grief. So being able to just identify my emotions as grief versus there's just something wrong with me, why am I struggling, became really important in my life. And I know Jana can relate to that as well. So, Jana, tell us a little bit about how you realized that grief was a big part of your life.
I too kind of grew up with the same understanding that grief was pretty specific to death. And sure, I had grandparents that passed away or a family pet. And so, I saw that as grief, but it was also something that we really didn't talk about. It was something that, yeah, it happened, but we need to let it go. We just need to move on. We don't
Mm.
need to focus on this. And it was through me using that method growing up, going through college, being away from home, and understanding that I just need to suck it up, that, there's something wrong with me because I can't deal with being on my own, or I miss my mom and dad. Then it went into, having miscarriages and a stillborn and everything, like you said, even a divorce. I didn't know how to navigate it because I didn't know that it was defined as grief. It was just everyday things that everybody's supposed to get over. And it
Mm.
was going through the grief recovery method where I learned, just how much bad things I had gone through that is all grief, even just moving to a new home. Simple things that just hurt my heart because it makes it heavier on a daily basis. If you see something bad happen, like a car accident, and you drive by it, it constantly is like that heavy thing. And if you don't talk about it, it just gets heavier and heavier. And you just continue to feel like there's something wrong with you. And doing this method was really the only thing that gave me a sense of, hey, it's okay. I can be hurting, but I also have a chance to move forward and leave the hurt behind, but not necessarily the memories.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, I talk to people all the time that think different losses in their life are a life sentence of pain, that there's no way to be able to experience joy again in your life. And you and I are both great examples um, of, we can heal, we can feel better, we can let go of all the pain that's in our heart, and we can carry the happy memories of whatever relationship it is that we lost forward in our life versus keeping all the pain, because that's what keeps us stuck. That's what makes many of us believe there's something wrong with us. I remember for many years thinking, why am I not happy? Like, I have a wonderful life. I mean, yes, I'm divorced. Some painful things have happened to me in my life, but, I have a great son. I have lots of family support and love. I have a home. I have a really wonderful career. So what's wrong? Like, I thought, am I depressed? I don't think so. So, I went to a counselor for years, and many people ask me, and I know you get the same question, Jana, what is the difference between the grief recovery method and like counseling or therapy? And what I always tell them is, from my experience, when I went to a therapist, I would talk about, what happened, and I would talk about it over and over again. And while there were a few little tools that I was offered, what I found was, you know, talking about the stories would help short term, but not long term, because there was no healing that would happen. And it's really what I've learned is the action steps that we take within time that help us heal our heart. It's not just talking about the story, because the story isn't what's causing the pain, it's the emotions around the story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very powerful thing to be able to understand how to define emotions and what we're feeling just on a regular everyday basis, because I mean we're all overwhelmed and stressed with work and crazy traffic and got to go to the grocery store, and so even those activities can lead to overwhelm, stress, anxiety, and so just being able to understand how to say, "Hey, I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling overwhelmed," is a huge step that most of us don't take because we're afraid that by mentioning we're having these feelings, we're going to scare people off because nobody wants to talk about it.
Absolutely. And we don't want to be seen as weak. And
Yeah.
that's something that Jana and I want to emphasize. Choosing to be vulnerable and emotionally honest takes courage. It's not a weakness. And, you will find, if you continue to listen to our conversations, that we don't have everything figured out. And I love that, right? Because we are great examples of, we do this work, we help others with this work, we continue to heal things that come up in our own lives that, cause pain. But life is not stagnant. We continue to have experiences in our life. Some of them are very joy filled and happy, and others hurt our heart. And there's no way to avoid that. But, well, we can try to avoid it, but that leads us down a really deep hole that's hard to get
Yeah.
out of. And so, we will show you consistently, there's things that come up in our life that we really need to look at, but we have to be honest about how we feel versus trying to stuff our emotions. And sadly, many of us were taught in childhood that we needed to be strong for other people, and that our emotions weren't welcome, and that we needed to isolate. I mean, I know, Jana, you had some of those experiences as well, and they shape how we deal with loss and grief in our life.
Oh yeah, isolation is a big one because you get so used to I don't want people to see me being emotional because they get emotional and don't want to talk to me. They don't want to be around me. They don't want to talk to me. I can't make them feel more uncomfortable. I have to remain uncomfortable. And so learning how to be emotionally honest and how to search out the joy um, is a game changer. I mean, every day we run into a struggle of one way or another. I mean, it's just human nature. So knowing that we always have that choice as to pivoting to, hey, I'm gonna change my mindset to I'm finding something happy for today and focusing on gratitude, or I'm gonna continue derailing myself with, no, I'm miserable, everybody hates me, nobody wants to see me, nobody wants to talk to me. Like we always have that choice. And it's just so important to find a circle people that can help uplift you and help you get onto that joy circle and that hey, let's find that gratitude today instead of spiraling downward, because I mean we all do that too. It's completely human nature, but it's so important to have somebody to talk to and help us kind of move more positive in an understanding way instead of kind of taking what's happening to us and minimalizing it, saying, well, you shouldn't be worried about that today, you should be over that. You need somebody that's going to be like, I'm so sorry that's happened, what can I do to help you?
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up because so many of us are met with unhelpful comments when we're grieving, when we're sad. You know, like if we lose someone, well, they're in a better place now, or, you know, you can get another dog, or, well, you know, yeah, I just lost my dog too, or I lost my grandma, all these things, the judgment, the, minimizing the comparison, all these are unhelpful. And I understand, most people come from a really loving, caring place and they want to be supportive, but it's really uncomfortable when someone we love is hurting. And so the best thing we can do is we call it be a listening heart, and we just show up and we hold space for someone and we listen. And this is a really hard skill because most of us were taught early in life that we are listening to respond.
Mhm.
So when we have to hold ourselves back and listen to just listen, it can be very difficult at first. It takes some practice, but it's beautiful because when people are hurting, most of them don't want to try to be fixed. We can't fix other people's problems, right? They just want to be heard. They want to know that they're important, that they're seen, they're heard, and they're not minimized. And so it's such a beautiful gift we can give to people when we just hold space.
Yeah, learning to not talk while listening
Mhm.
has definitely been one of the most trying. I know when I first started too, because it's our human nature to spit out and like try to butt into a conversation, even just not trying to compare, but trying to help by telling them, well, I had this happen and this is how I dealt with it. It's
Mhm.
it's so different. So I would challenge you as a listener today to try that even in just your next conversation with your child or your loved one at home. Just, hey, how was your day? To sit and actually listen, because it is a lot harder than it seems. And then to respond with something, a little bit easier on the heart, like, well, I'm sorry you had a rough day. What can I do to help you? Instead of just fighting back instantly, well, I had a hard day too, and this is what I had to go through. It's a tough skill, but it's definitely one that's life changing for everybody that learns it.
It absolutely is because people will feel heard, and that's so important. So I love that we've brought that up. But one other thing I want to talk about today is, you know, people say to me all the time, well, I feel like I should be over this by now. Like, why am I not over this? Like, everybody tells me that I'll just feel better within time. And I remember, going back to, those early relationships in my life. And people would say, oh, well, you'll find another significant other. There's more fish in the sea. You'll feel better soon. Well, I love to do this comparison. So if we're driving down the road and we get a flat tire, we get out of the car, we notice the tire's flat. We can't just sit on the side of the road and think that it's going to reinflate because we could sit there for 5 years and it's pretty much not going to reinflate.
Mhm.
We have to do something. And it's the same with our heart hurting. We can't just sit there and expect that it's going to feel better. I ask people all the time when I'm in a group of individuals, please raise your hand if your heart still hurts after something happened like a year ago. Everybody raised their hand. I go to 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then I look at individuals and I say, if time healed your broken heart, wouldn't 20 years be enough?
Mhm.
And it gives pause to everyone because it's not time. I know people that have been divorced for 30 years and they're still just as angry.
Yeah.
It's what we do in that time, it's the actions that we take. We can't just heal because we sit there and wait for healing. That's not how life works.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate to be in the world that we are today, because so many of us are hurting from so many different things.
Mhm.
And we do lash out at others, not even realizing that we're doing this. Even if somebody does ask us, well, you seem bothered, is something wrong? Our nature again is to try and protect ourselves. I'm not going to tell you because you don't really want to know. You don't care. We
Mhm.
do. And we want you to be able to find that circle of people that also cares and wants to help you get through this, get past this, and move forward into the joy and into the good so that you can find a little bit of good in each day, each moment.
Hmm. Yeah, our purpose for actually doing this podcast is we don't want people to feel alone. And grieving, whether it's over, someone you love has died, your children have launched into the world and you're an empty nest, you've lost a job, you've moved. There's so many things, a divorce. There's so many things that cause grief. Any type of change, loss, transition leads to conflicting feelings in our heart. And we want people to feel like they are heard, that they are seen, that their emotions are normal, because that's not the message we spread in the world. It's, keep your emotions to yourself, keep them behind closed doors. And Jana and I, we want people to feel like they can be emotionally honest.
It's so much better for your overall health just to be able to get a lot of that heavy stuff off your shoulders because you don't realize how much your health is tied up into your emotional health until you start getting rid of some of this stuff and you see some of this stuff disappearing. There's a lot of illness tied into being so emotionally overwhelmed, our nervous system being completely shot from living in fight and flight, being so worried and anxious, and it's just it's a bad place to have to deal with life alone, and that's absolutely it. We don't want to see anybody have to do this alone ever.
Mm-mm. Practicing as a nurse for 28 years before I left the career, I just saw over and over and over again people ending up with physical illness, disease after some type of change or loss in their life. And many times they didn't have the resources to heal. And so, their physical issues would get worse. And, then they'd be on all kinds of medications. And it was just a spiral downward. And, that's one of the reasons I decided to leave and do the work I'm doing today, because I wanted people to be able to transform their lives, to heal and find joy and thrive again, because we all deserve that.
Absolutely. And I know my personal story brought me into this because I myself was in a deep, dark spot with losing my son, and I
Mhm.
didn't have the support. And I know what it's like to feel that horrible and alone. And I don't want others to have to do that kind of stuff alone either.
No. Well, we're going to end today. We just wanted to do kind of a quick introduction, and we really hope that all of you will join us again for another episode. If today's episode spoke to your heart, we'd love for you to subscribe, share it with loved ones, or leave us a comment. And until next time, please be gentle with yourself. Remember, healing is possible, and remember that you don't have to walk this journey alone. So take care, my friends, and we will have another episode coming out soon for all of you.